Welcome to The Good Pod, where today we'll be talking about The Good Wife, Season 1, Episode 18, Doubt. I'm one of your co-host, Jason Reed. With me, as always, one of the best fluffin' co-hosts in the podcasting game, Marissa Garza. Marissa, how the fluff are you?
I was real nervous how that was gonna go, but I'm doing fluffing good.
Good.
You?
It's always good to be fluffing
How
good.
you doing?
I'm fluffing fantastic. I'm fluffing good. I'm really fluffing good today.
Good.
So listen, we got this. This was kind of more of a run-of-the-mill case of the week with some big things happening. But before we deep dive into the case of the week and all the happenings with our peeps, we want to remind you of some free and easy ways that you can help support the podcast. No matter how you're listening or watching this podcast, there are ways to let us know that you're enjoying the pod. If you're listening on any podcatcher, like on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any other podcasting app, you can always rate us, give us 5 stars, give us 5 whatever the best thing is, please give us that. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a written review of 5 stars. We would love that as well. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. That's down here. Also, remember to follow wherever you are. There's always a follow button, a subscribe button, wherever you can hit that. That will let you know when we have a new episode popping up. Please do that. That helps us immensely as well. If you want to leave us any questions, comments, other feedback, you can always email us at thegoodpodfeedback@gmail.com. As always, thank you so much for rating, reviewing, and subscribing.
Okay, can we talk
Marissa,
about it now?
let's go.
Like,
We had a lot going on. We had the kind of more of the fallout of the Alicia Will stuff from last episode. We had the return of one of our faves,
so good.
Kurt, the ballistics expert, and a lot of listen. We had some romance bloom in the last episode. We are full on romance bloom with a certain couple in this episode that we're going to talk about. Very exciting. Love it. I can feel the ramp up and the move toward the finale coming because
would you say it's warming up, Jason?
I would say it's warming up. Probably not as warm as you feel for the Dead Poet Society cast, but pretty warm. Things are getting steamy and warm on The Good Wife.
I again could not contain myself this entire. I forgot how great it was to see Diane just as like Diane-y as possible. So I'm excited to talk about that. But yeah, this episode, let's just get right into it. I didn't break any of this down. Usually we'll have like case of the week, other things happening, but this is kind of one that goes kind of linearly. So we're just going to run it down. Yeah.
Yeah, everything was kind of entangled in each other.
Right off the bat, this episode is different than others we've seen. There was no like previously on. There was just a start of, well, there was a previously on, but there's a start to this where it's jurors. We're seeing jurors really for the first time on the show go into the jury room. And my mind immediately went to, oh, this is their 12 Angry Men episode. 12 Angry Men. I don't know. Do you remember watching that when you were like, did you have to watch it in school? I had to watch it in school.
Marissa, I was in the Baltimore City public school system. We did not watch 12 Angry Men.
It was a black and white movie.
We didn't watch it in that school system. We watched like Sounder. We watched other stuff like we watched Roots.
Yeah, fair.
We didn't watch 12 Angry Men. That wasn't our thing.
Okay, that's fair. I
know what it is, but we didn't watch it in school.
I remember that was yet another formative film for me because I loved how it kind of just talked through like what a jury has to do and this concept of reasonable doubt. And I think that Will starts his time in the courtroom, that we see at least, of quoting the movie, because I think in the movie also starts with like reasonable doubt. Like, this is, what do we mean when we say reasonable doubt? And we kind of see this murder trial unfold from going back and forth between what we're seeing at the jury and then also what we see happening in the courtroom that they're recalling was happening.
So I will say, not enough law shows deal with the jury aspect of things, like going inside the jury's minds. I remember there was that show. What's that show called? Bull. That the guy was like a jury consultant guy. The guy from NCIS that got famous from that show. He was in that. But other than that, I don't think like a Law and Order or like most other law shows deal too much with what goes on in the jury deliberation room. I thought this worked very well in different senses. I also thought that it didn't work in a sense that it almost felt like the jury was following the show because at certain
Yeah.
points they went on information they had that we had in the episode, but as things happened in the episode for like Will and Co, it kind of also happened for the jury, but it doesn't really make sense because in that moment when the jury comes in the room is when the whole trial has finished and it's their time to deliberate. So they should have known all the information that we know at the end, but it felt like they were kind of going as we went with finding out developments, which isn't really true, like in that sense. I almost felt like they were like in the jury room doing stuff, and then they found out these things about the jacket, let's say, and then they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, but then the jacket happened." So it was weird in that way, but I understand how they had to do it to make the episode make sense. But that was my only hiccup there. I thought as a device for the episode, it worked pretty well.
Yeah, there are definitely some loose ends or not connected dots that happened
Mhm.
along the way. But I always love seeing a jury kind of deliberate and figure things out.
I'm so mad, Marissa, because
Why?
I've never ever been on a
Me
jury,
neither. I really want to
and I
be on
want
a
to.
jury.
I feel like we've had this discussion before somewhere. I don't remember where, but I've never been on a jury and I want to be on one. Like I really kind of do. But I know if I do, I'll regret it because it won't be like a juicy case like this. It'll be some boring, like, I don't know, tax case or something. I don't know. It won't be as juicy as this one would be. So I feel like I would regret it. But I want to be in the room where it happens. You know what I mean? Like I want to be in that situation where I'm like having to decide things and looking at a case. But I do feel like in real life I would just be really bored.
Well, it was fun for the people on jury duty last summer. You never know.
Yeah.
Um, but this jury does have some recognizable faces. We see one of the jurors whose name is Lena is played by Tova Feldsa. I think I spelled that right. I know her most from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, but she was also on The Walking Dead. I walked in and I was like, oh, that lady.
Yeah, you look familiar.
Oh,
Like
it's her. And the other juror that I recognized, but more by her voice than how she looked, was
Mhm.
Marisol. She's the other woman juror. She is played by Selena Ye- Yeva. Yeah, I probably like love ya. I'm not doing like it's
I
been a long day, peeps. Um, but she's from Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, that's her definitely her biggest thing.
Yes. Yeah. So, and we debated whether we recognized other people, but if you recognize them, let us know. But those were the
Yeah.
people that we wanted to call out.
I think a lot of what we would call, procedure regulars, where they've been on these different procedurals of one here and one there. I think that's probably where most of these jury people were made up of.
Yes. Yeah. So they come into the room and get right to it. They have a first vote. It's split straight down the middle. This is straight out of 12 Angry Men. There's a split at the start. So then they start recalling what they've seen at the trial. And I forget this detective dude's name. Was it Tony?
Yeah, I do believe this is Tony, like the hot detective number two that
Yeah.
we've seen. We've seen him before. He's back now. I wonder if he's going to be our regular hot detective, or we're going to keep switching back and forth between hot detectives. I don't know.
I was Team Frank. I don't know. Anywho, Tony's on the stand and he's saying, hey, the defendant was the only person in the room when we got there. The gun's registered in her name. The, Kalinda walks in. He gives her a nod. The jury took note of this, which I
Hmm.
thought was interesting. And the other things he tells everyone is here's a photo. It was taken 30 seconds after the murder. So it's not looking very good because Bianca, the defendant, has blood like all over her in this situation. But Will is trying to play games here and says, yeah, but like you've never tampered with evidence, right? Like you've never had an internal affairs report on you, right?
When someone goes right, that means there's something bad coming next. Like that means he definitely did it. When he says right, that means he's gonna come out with something else.
Well, and I thought it was interesting because like the judge is just like not having it in the
Yeah,
situation.
listen, the judge, he's one of our favorite judges.
Yes.
I honestly forget the judge's name. Robert Cuesta is the judge's name.
Yes.
Cuesta. I love this judge. He is always kind of a no nonsense, no BS kind of guy, and will tell these people like it is, and that's what I love about Cuesta.
I feel like he's like, oh, I have to babysit the kids again. Like I
Yeah,
feel like
definitely.
it's that type of vibe.
Yeah.
Well, and Bianca, so this murder happened at a sorority house at a college. She's very young. Her mom is very concerned. And it looks though, or it sounds as though Will and the team were brought in after another team had originally taken
Mhm.
the case. So they're a little bit behind the ball. But Bianca's freaked out. And instead of having Alicia be the witness speaker here, we have a new player on the field. Cary is making friends with Bianca.
Cary, who hated hand holding the other, 40 something white dude, he always goes like, "Oh, you want me to hand hold this 19-year-old college student? No
Got
problem.
it.
I'm in it. I'm there. Say the word."
Yeah, yeah, it was really kind of creepy, kind of weird. But also like Carrie really looks like he still could be in college. So
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
like
He looks like a child. He
yeah.
look he looks like he looks Zach's age. He really does.
They're gonna need a ballistics expert. I wonder what's gonna
Did someone say ballistics expert? You know what that means, ladies and gentlemen? Kurt's back.
oh my gosh. And this whole sequence, one of my favorite things I've ever seen. Like Diane is being interviewed by Mother Jones, a magazine, getting her, story out there, talking about choice, all of this stuff. She is distracted beyond belief at the sight of Kurt Vonnegut.
Mm.
Kurt Vonnegut?
Uh,
Kurt McVeigh?
Kurt Vonnegut. Wow, Freudian slip there, Marissa. Oh my.
I was in my Dead Society mind from before.
Yeah, I see. Listen, honestly, Will and Alicia wish
For
they had
real.
the
For
chemistry of
real.
Diane and Kurt, because like the chemistry is off the charts whenever Diane and Kurt are in the same room. They weren't even in the same room, and their chemistry is off the charts. With Diane just like being this giddy schoolgirl, just looking at Kurt from across the office, it's just like, huh? Yeah,
Well,
as she's talking to the reporter, she's like, huh? What? Yeah,
and he
huh?
makes
As
a
she's like looking
point
at Kurt.
to like sit so he's facing her. So they're like looking
Mm-hmm.
at each other. And
He knows
Diane,
what he's doing.
yeah,
He knows what he's doing.
Diane's like, I gotta go. BRB. Thanks so much for this. And she's like so giddy about it. Thanks for the Sarah Palin book. When she took like when she turned a heel to Big Oil, blah blah blah. And he's like, yeah, well, I bought a Hillary Clinton book for 50 cents. And then like at the end of their conversation, I cannot like I wish I was Diane in this moment. There are times where I just wish I was Diane Lockhart, and this is one of them because she's like, "You betcha," and then puts her hair behind her ear. She's so
And
good.
like literally giggles on the way back to
Yes,
her office. Literally.
so fun. It's so fun. So fun. I don't think she finished that interview because
No, she was too distracted. She was warmed up, as we like to say around here, at the sight of our man Kurt.
she was warming up, and she's like, "I'm gonna go sit in and listen to Kurt and Will talk about the
I love
situation."
I love when she walks in and she just sits there. Will's like, what are you doing here? Like, this isn't your case. She's like, I'm just sitting in. She's like, okay, sure, because that's normal. Like that's what we do.
That's how it goes usually. And Kurt's thing, he's like, I will talk to you, but if I think that this person is guilty or the evidence points in that direction, I'm not going to take this case. So that's what he tells Will. So that's not looking great. Um, Will has to come up with a story. And this is very 12 Angry Men. Like it's all about the story that's being told, trying to find a hole in the prosecution story. The story that the prosecution is saying is that Bianca shot her best friend out of jealousy after a threesome. I couldn't like, was this the first time we heard about the threesome, or was I just not paying attention?
I think when we got introduced to the case, that I think
Okay.
they kind of spelled it out that she was dating Josh, who's the guy,
Yep. Yep. Okay.
and so yeah, I'm trying to like she was dating Josh, dating in quotes, and Josh wanted to have a threesome with this other woman, Heather, who is the
Right.
quote unquote victim here, and Bianca. So he convinced Bianca to have a threesome with him and Heather,
On
and
drugs.
then
They had drugs.
on drugs. They were all on drugs, and we get reference to Tiger Woods scandal.
Yeah.
It just tells you where we are in society, in life in 2010, that got referenced. But yeah, that's basically, and we don't really know like the DA side is that Bianca was jealous of Heather because she was, I don't know, looking at Josh, so she decided to kill
Oh,
Heather,
I guess.
which is like very flimsy. But yeah, I think that's the whole over of the A's case.
Thank you. I was like, when did this happen? And then Kalinda found, like, there was this photo that was used in court. She found that there was another photo that was similar to that one, but only like a couple seconds off. So they figured out that this was not just a photo, it was a screenshot basically from
Yeah,
a video.
there was a weird foot
Yes.
in the picture that is in the picture that I forgot where she got that picture from, but it was like someone's foot was in it. So like obviously there's something. This was a screenshot from a video that was taken, and whose foot is that? That's important.
Yes. Yes. Will steals a moment with Alicia here, just a little on the side because things are weird between the two of them right now.
Mhm.
And Will says, like, we still haven't had that dinner. And Alicia's like, no, we haven't. And Will says, are you worried about Peter and the kids? I'm not like his I'm not. I was like,
Mhm.
ooh, ooh,
I don't give a
ooh.
f about your kids or about Peter. F them kids. F Peter. I want you.
It was so good. Again,
He literally almost he's just F them kids. Like that's just what he should say. F them kids. I don't care. I don't care about your kids.
it's like we'll figure it out afterwards. Like we will figure it out.
Mm.
So they put Josh on the stand, Josh being the man in the threesome in the situation. And there's a comical moment where we cannot say the word sex or the F word. And so we will be using the word fluff.
Mhm.
And he's super nervous, Josh, to be on the stand and kind of explain the deeds that were done.
I love the interaction with him and Cuesta because Josh is like, you can tell that Cuesta had the conversation with him before of like, yeah, you don't say it in my courtroom because he's like, well, if you want me to say what I said, I can't really spell it out without saying certain things.
Yeah, I can.
And Cuesta, who's like everybody's, granddad, is like, you're not going to say that in my courtroom where I can hear it. You're going to say the word fluff, and then Josh, proceeds to use the word fluff in his kind of testimony about what
Well,
happened.
but then he also is saying things like, well, then, yeah, you know. And Quest is like, no, we don't know. So you're going to have to tell us.
Cuesta can't stand this
Like,
guy.
yeah, no, no. But his story that he says on the stand is that Bianca's always jealous of other women. So it's kind of lining up with the prosecution story here. And he left the room, then heard the shot. These are the important pieces of information
Yeah.
he drops on the stand. Meanwhile, Diane, again, like a giddy schoolgirl, is hanging around the courtroom, trying to see like what's going on, hoping to run into Kurt. And Kurt, man, Kurt is so smooth. He is so smooth, so
Kurt
good.
and his like standing up against the wall
Ugh.
with his foot on the wall, like, the cool guy pose, standing on the wall. Marissa, I can see it all the way over
Mhm.
Chicago. You are warmed up. You are Diane level warmed up. Like Diane, it was so funny because she obviously is looking at her watch like he should be probably in that courtroom like right
Right
about
now?
now. Let
Yeah.
me go
Mhm.
look and see. And then she walks casually over there. She's like, oh, Kurt,
Funny
you're
meeting you
here.
here.
Oh, I didn't know you
Oh.
were gonna be here. Like, okay, Diane, sure.
Well, and he is so like, first of all, there was the lane. Cool. But then there was like their obvious awkwardness. And then Will's
Mhm.
just like, well, I'm just gonna get this over, or not Will. Kurt is like, I'm just gonna get this over with. 8 p.m. West End dinner.
Mm.
Yeah. And she was like, yeah. And then she did her little giggle. So
Yeah, so good,
so
so good.
yeah. So there that's happening. Will is trying to figure out like what to like what is this story? He's whoa, I got lost. Hold on. Let me I was so distracted by Kurt. Hold
Yeah,
on.
well, I mean, in that first Kurt visit is where Kurt tells him like, "No, this person's guilty, so I cannot take your
Right,
case."
right. But he's in the court for another case, which is why he
Yeah,
was able
Kurt.
to
Yeah,
like stay around.
yeah, that's where
Um
he and Diane talk. Yeah.
Yeah. So back in the courtroom, there's a conversation about the drugs were being had. Alicia's like, yo, did you know that this drug can cause hallucinations and memory
Mm.
loss? Let me ask you some questions about that night. What kind of underwear was she wearing? White underwear. No, she was not. So kind of plant some doubt there. Kalinda, again, just like being Kalinda, goes to the college and finds the girl who had the photo
Mhm.
and finds out some more information.
Yeah, and it's like I love Kalinda. You know, we all love Kalinda because this whole episode was like, "Who are you with again? Are you with the cops?" She's like, and Kalinda's just like, "Well, I was just asked to investigate."
Yeah.
She doesn't say like by who. She doesn't say like I was just asked. That's why I'm here. I just need to investigate. And Kalinda with her, I would love to see Kalinda's closet and just see like the rows and rows of leather jackets that she
She
has
has,
in every color. It's like Elsbeth and her tote bags. It's like
yes,
Kalinda and her leather jackets.
yes. But I would always choose her leather jackets over Elspeth's bags.
Yeah, a lot less cumbersome, to be honest.
Well, through her investigation, she finds out that Josh, who had said on the stand that he went up and then heard the shot, actually did go up the stairs before the gunshot. So this is, and was talking to someone who looked like the assistant athletic director, finds a,
Uh, Excuse me, assistant
oh,
to the athletic director. Let's not give this man more kudos than he
fair.
deserves. He was not the assistant athletic director. He was the assistant to the athletic director.
You,
Shout out to Dwight Schrute from The Office.
fair, fair. I don't want
When
it.
I heard her say that, I was like, that's so hilarious.
And they find a coat here, basically.
Well, this is where she actually this is where she like hacks into Ernie's locker, the
Yeah.
assistant to the athletic director, and finds a bunch of
Oh,
computers.
yeah, that's
So
right.
that's what leads her to the jacket. I loved when she wants to get into the locker, and the guy's like, "Who are you again? Like who? Like
I'm
again? You
Kalinda.
questioning? Like she's like, I'm Kalinda. Like it's like, oh, that's such a Kalinda vibe. And you're like, oh, I'm Kalinda. Like that just should be her entry line into every episode. I'm Kalinda. Like I'm Kalinda, bitch. Like shawarma, Kalinda shawarma.
Well, she
So
takes
good.
this information back to Will. They're going to need a new ballistics expert because Kurt's not going to take this case. But on the way out, she asks Alicia, "What's up with you?" And Will doesn't look at you anymore.
And you just gotta love Kalinda's bluntness and
Yeah,
tells it like it is. Like he's not looking at you like he wants to, bone you anymore. What's up? What's going on? What did you do? She literally says like, "What did you do?" Like,
yeah. And
so
like,
good.
it's just like pure chaos for this firm because we've got like the Will and Alicia thing happening. Diane's in her office watching Sarah Palin stuff for like,
I think she's trying to be like, let me see if I can get on board with
yeah,
the Sarah Palin thing, so that I can have Kurt and not be
yeah.
disgusted every time we talk about politics. Let me see if I can get on board with this. And she's like, no,
No,
no, can't do it.
can't do it. I like she spent like 2 seconds listening to it, and that's the amount of
Mhm.
tolerance that she has.
Like, no, can't, just can't.
This new ballistics expert is pretty bad, pretty
Yeah.
clumsy, not great, and completely contradicts what the prosecution's ballistics expert says. So the jury here is left with like no clear idea. And they also have pointed out because we're flashing forward, backwards. We're flashing to
Mhm.
the jury deliberations where they're like, we don't have any DNA evidence. So basically, I mean, like, there is a lot of doubt kind of piling up in the situation. And as votes go in the jury, they keep waffling back and forth, back and forth. Clint is back on the case, goes back to can't brings the campus police, like just calls them up, brings them to
No, I mean, I should probably call him like, all right, so you're gonna let me into Josh's room. Like, you can come with me if you want, but I'm gonna get in there one way or the other. So you might as well let me in with a key. I can imagine Clinton having that conversation. Like, I'm gonna get in the room, so it's just better if you guys come with me and like let me in legally. Like,
yeah.
or I will just go in illegally. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, and Tony's like right on her tail, like
Freaking Tony.
seeing all this stuff. And this is where they find the jacket. And she's like, check to see if there's gunshot residue on it. They take that away. We'll talk about that in a minute because we got Bianca having a conversation with Cary, which is so cringy. Like they're in jail,
Very.
they're in the jail cell. And Bianca's like, none of my friends would visit me or in college, in jail.
Hey, some people say college is like jail, so
That's true. That's true. And then it was like, "Would you visit me, Carrie?" And Carrie says yes. I was
she's
like,
like, sure, I
"What?"
definitely would. When in reality, we all know the day after you get sentenced, you try to call Carrie from your prison phone, and you're like, who new number? Who this? Like, I don't know who this. Will you accept the charges for? No, I will not. I do not target people in prison. We all know Carrie would drop Bianca as soon as she got into prison. Like, come on, Carrie, who do you think you are?
And also, what are you doing? Like, don't.
Well, also it's like none of my friends came to visit me. Like, where do you think you are? Summer camp? Like, what? You're in jail.
That's true. I mean, Peter went to jail for 8 months and saw his world turn to dust. So I can only imagine
Mhm.
what Bianca's
What a
gonna feel.
19-year-old feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Diane and Kurt have dinner.
Oof.
I can't even talk about it, Jason. It's so good.
Well, she's like she talks about his silent cowboy act of like, it's kind of selfish, your little silent cowboy thing. It kind of leaves other people to hold the weight of the conversation. And let me tell you, I was taking my notes and I was like typing, and then everything went quiet, and I was like, what's going on? I look up, and they are mid lip lock. I'm like, whoa, what happened here? And it was I never thought I would enjoy seeing two old people getting it on like I enjoyed Diane and Kurt
Well, also, like
kissing.
the build up to that, she's like talking about like she's using big words. I forget what she said because I was so distracted by this whole situation. He's like, "You don't need to talk like that." And she's like, "Yeah, I do. This is how I talk.
Yeah, like this is me, bro.
Like, this is it." But I think he was like, "No, you don't need to talk. Like,
Oh, okay.
like
Let's do other stuff.
yeah." And so Diane
Oh
is like
man.
freaking out. First of all, she also says like, "Who knew I loved cowboys?" Loved cowboys.
Love.
Like, just
Well, you
drops that,
okay.
drops
Sheesh.
that. And then she's
Man,
freaking
Diane.
out. She's like, I can't do this. Like, there are generations of Democrats in my
So
family.
good. So funny. That would not enjoy me doing this with you right now. I have to go for my generational pride of my people. I was just like, wow, man. Like Diane and Kurt kissing in a restaurant, doing other stuff
But
later, but I can't say that because this is a family podcast.
well, she gets up. And this is
And
this
leaves.
like this is the Diane Lockhart I know and love. Like this, she's like, I'm not just leaving. I'm gonna
Well, we
leave and I'm gonna kiss him on the way out.
yeah, she leaves, gives it a passionate kiss goodbye. It's like, oh my gosh, Diane, and the storms out of the restaurant as far as we saw in that
In
moment.
that
Really,
moment, in that
in that
moment.
moment. Yeah.
Kalinda's hanging out at the police department, finding that there is gunshot residue on the jacket, but also Heather's blood. But the only thing that like the cops are willing to say here is that Josh was in cahoots with Heather to like rob people. But that's all that they can get out of this. But Kalinda's like,
That was
"Yo, we need Kurt back. Like, there's new
that was such a
evidence."
weird that was such a weird turn in the case because first of all, so they when Kalinda breaks into Ernie's locker, the assistant to the athletic director, it's his locker, but he has all the stolen stuff in his locker. But somehow that turns into Josh and Heather being people that are stealing
Mm-hmm.
on campus.
It's a
I
little
don't think they
messy.
really. Yeah, it's definitely a messy thing on the show's part. So I'm not sure where like they kind of blurred the line there. I feel like they went one way and then changed midstream. It didn't bother to change what they'd already done, but we'll let it go. Well, it's a small thing, but it was kind of an odd turn for the case to take. Like, oh, Josh and Heather were actually ripping people off on campus. I was like, that is a weird way to take the story.
Yeah. I mean, they had to get to where we end up in some
Mhm.
way, but yeah, it was a little messy. Will is reading the writing on the wall. He's like, okay, it's not looking great. We might need to put Bianca on the stand. So he calls Alicia and says, hey, yo, would you be able, which he knows the answer to. He knows because he's already asked Alicia if she would question Bianca on the stand. He knows how this is. It's like, hey, yeah, you sure you're okay to question her? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, we're in a weird place. Like, let's just dive right into it. We're in a weird place.
Yeah, and I love Alicia like walking around like, where's Peter at? Let me make sure I'm having this conversation alone, which she kind of isn't. But yeah, they have an interesting convo.
Okay, I'm just putting this out here. When Will says, when I look at you during the day, I want to know what you're thinking.
My boy, he's going full force now. He is going at it because that's only stuff you say like to people you want to get to know better. Like when I look at you, I just want to know what you're thinking.
Like, people on the dating apps or whatever, put the fish away. Like, we don't
Yeah.
need any more fish. I just need someone to tell me when I look at you during the day, I want to know what you're thinking. Like, that
Get you
is
some Will
it.
Gardner. Get you some Will Gardner game. Get you Will
Yes.
Gardner swag. That's what you need.
As that or Kurt. Like, I'll take both. Like, that's
Yeah,
fine.
silent cowboy. Your profile should be nothing but you looking like Kurt at the camera, like squinty eyes, probably. Like,
Maybe
yeah,
like I need to make a dating profile that just like puts these lines, and if people know where they're from, then it's like okay,
yeah.
you pass. But it is, oh yeah, when he says that, I'm just like, oh, and she's like, I don't know what I'm thinking, and then the camera does this thing, and I'm just like, oh crap and a half, because it's panning, it's going away from Alicia. Alicia's looking around to see if there's people. Continuing to have this conversation. Alicia's like, if it would have been us and not Peter, it would have lasted a week, because that's why it's
Mm,
romantic. Like that's why we're feeling these feelings, because it didn't happen and it's unrequited and stuff like that. And Grace, for some reason, is like sitting on the floor listening to this.
yeah, that was weird. I was like, why is Grace listening to her mother's conversations? And when Alicia says this about Georgetown, we don't know, we don't hear what Will says, but Alicia's like, oh, don't say
I
that, Will.
know.
Like, I want to know what Will said.
No. You know it's good. You know it's good. Well, Kurt's back on the case, so he's got it all figured out. He's got his test dummies out there. He's got his guns. He's got everything. And he figures out that this was an accidental firing. So one of the things that we learned at the start of the episode is that this was a we learned the type of gun it was, and it was given to Bianca by her mom for protection. But what Kurt is saying is, well, if Heather was, burgling here, she was checking the drawer to see what happened. The gun is very touch sensitive, so it accidentally fired on Heather. The gun fell to the floor, fell in the jacket. That's what happened. While this is going on, Will's trying to like text message, and Diane's like, there's no service here. So I have to say, Will, Diane has been giving you clues, so many clues. Like, I just need to sit in here. Also, how does Diane know that there's no service here? Like, Will was not putting clues together that anything was
Well, I mean, I
happening
think
here.
Diane will probably just say, I was here on the case
I don't care.
before. I know there's no
But
service.
like, Will was a little too surprised to find out, in my opinion. Um,
And to find out what?
yeah, we'll find out.
We'll find out.
So this is Kurt's story. Like, it was an accidental firing. Will again is going back to, hey, this is not a very sexy story to sell this jury. Like, the prosecution has something a little bit beefier here. We need.
Yeah, and I think that that is an interesting thing to say about, it's interesting analysis into how we decide guilt or innocence in our lands of America, for sure, with the jury system, because it's like, yeah, the jury's not going to find this sexy. They find the other story more sexy, so they'll probably believe that story instead, which is like, what? Like, it's interesting how we leave fate up to people that I don't know if I would trust to watch my dog. Like,
Well,
you know what I mean?
yeah, and it just shows like how powerful stories are for humans. Like, it's like
Hmm.
just so hardwired into us. Like, you could tell somebody, as we experience in our life in 2024, you can tell somebody something that's 100% not true, and if they have a strong emotional connection to it, they're gonna believe it. So
Or if you spin it in a certain way,
yeah,
that they will respond in a certain way. And I think that's what Will's saying. Like, if we don't, like, we can't just be like, oh, sorry, just went off accidentally. She shot herself. End of story. Everybody's gonna be like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. Like, I
yeah,
kind of want someone to be guilty here. I want to punish someone with something or have some cool story. But if they don't have that, they're going to want to go with the better story
right.
and believe that side of it. So that it's just kind of crazy that is our process for America. I don't have a better process. Don't get me wrong. I can't tell you what else to do, but it's just interesting that we leave it up to our
Well,
peers.
I think, spoilers for Good Fight, there is a storyline where that involves taking
Yeah.
humans out of the equation in
Mhm.
figuring this out. So it is a discussion that will continue throughout the series. Cary is also noting here that like this story doesn't even really like stack up to the story we first told them. Like, we're even
Yes.
losing to ourselves. And so they go and they talk to Bianca and they're like, hey, like, did this happen? And for some reason, I don't know why Bianca was like not telling them or confirming that this is what had happened. She just
Well,
looks
I don't.
to Cary and is like, what should I do?
Well, I don't even think Bianca fully knows
That's
what
fair.
happened because, as we hear, Bianca came out of the bathroom after the gunshot and just found Heather on the ground when it didn't really understand. I don't think she really even understood
What
what happened
happened?
here.
Yeah.
But I think, but you're right in the fact of like, Bianca's just been like, well, the gun's in the drawer, so I don't know, like, what happened. The gun was next to Heather. I think Bianca may have been able to put that together. I don't know
Yeah.
what she was or wasn't telling them. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't
Weird.
know why, because they're all on her side. Like everyone in that room was on
Or
her
why we're
side.
just now being like, maybe we should ask Bianca.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. Yeah. Yeah. So they put Kurt on the stand. Okay. So Kurt tells his ballistics truth, everything. Defense is like, great, thanks, Kurt. Then it's time for Matan on the prosecution side to come up. And he's like, oh, hey, didn't your opinion about this case change like 2 days ago? And wasn't it like 2 days ago that you were having dinner with the partner from the law firm on the other side by the name of Diane Lockhart?
Yikes! And it really doesn't help that Diane is in the
Yeah,
audience
of course she is.
of the case to see her boo in action.
Well,
Like,
and we as an audience find out at this moment that Diane and Kurt went back to the hotel room together after dinner.
my jaw was dropped. I was like, "What?" Like, Diane, after all that stuff you said, you did an Alicia. You turned around and went back in to get some more, but this time Kurt wasn't like a Will. Kurt wasn't gone. Kurt was like, "Let's go. Like, let's do the damn thing." I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, I thought I was gonna be like, "No, we didn't do that." It's like Kurt's like, "Yup, we
Sure
did. I
did.
told that thing. I told that thing
Well,
up."
and he like answered so quickly and so confidently. Like he is in this. Like he is
Yeah,
enjoying himself as well. And Will's like, objection, he answered too quickly.
yeah,
Like we can't have this. We can't have this happen. And the judge is like, again, in this kindergarten situation, he's not happy with this. He's like, look, I understand why you're upset. I understand why you're upset. We're just going to call this a draw because you're both playing fast and loose with the implications here. We're not really talking about the facts. And Masan's like, that's cool, but you need to tell the jury that they can consider this in some way. And I always, every single time, I'm like, how are we as humans supposed
yeah.
to either not take information into our consideration or think about it in some other way after we've heard it? Like it's out there. I don't
You
really
can't.
know how those
You
things
can't.
work.
Like, I don't care what judge tells me not to think of whatever that I've been told, but I can't erase it from my mind. Like, I still know it. And it's like when people say, like, when people introduce evidence and the judge is like, you cannot think about this
Yeah.
evidence. Like, but I've already seen it and thought about it. I can't take it out of my mind. I'm surprised they didn't like explore that more thoroughly in this episode, being like, well, he told us not to think about it, but I can't do that. Like, I have to. Like, I already know it,
Well, and I
so I can't
wonder,
stop
like,
thinking.
if it would come up in a mistrial, like if a juror was interviewed afterwards, and that one thing was the thing that really made them turn, like,
Mhm.
if that would be cause for mistrial or something like that. Hey, lawyers, let me know because we have no idea, like, what's going on.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not a system of like if something that happens, like, all right, we gotta start all over again, get 12 new people in here, like like
Yeah,
every time something like that happens. They
yeah,
probably tried it that way, but it took too long to restart trials. And just like, y'all didn't hear that, okay? Like just forget you heard that.
yeah.
And they're just gonna leave it to everyone's, judgment to not have remembered that.
So
And
I
to
don't
not
know.
put in their judgment.
The jury's gonna do whatever the jury's gonna do with that. Back at
Mhm.
the firm, Will is mad at Diane, like super mad. Like, how can you do this? The firm's supposed to come before your happiness, basically before your life, and Diane is having none of it.
She calls him right out of like, oh yeah, like you think what I did was bad? What about you and your puppy dog eyes all over the office for Alicia? It was like, what, what, what? Me, me and Alicia? No, me, not me and Alicia.
There is
After you,
nothing going, and he puts on his like it's a total lawyer answer because it is the
Mhm.
truth. There is nothing going on currently at that moment
There
between
is
the two.
nothing. We are currently not in a situation of a relationship right
Right
now.
now.
Yeah, at the moment,
We're not
like
even
I
in
am
the
not
same
in.
room right now.
Yeah, I am not in this moment kissing her. Like
Right now.
right now, as you see me, I'm not kissing her. So that's not happening right now. So I don't know what you're talking about. So because it's so funny just to see him caught in his own like BS in the moment, his own hypocrisy of he is yelling. at Diane right now
Yeah.
about this, about how this has ruined the case, about how could you do this? I think he's kind of like secretly he's kind of mad, like why are you getting some but I'm not? Like how come your thing is working and mine isn't? I think he's just kind of mad at that right now because deep down he's like, I wish I could be doing that with Alicia, but I can't. Like so,
Well, he's
I think
definitely
that's
got
part of what's going on here.
some frustration happening.
Yeah, and then just to see Diane call it plain as day, like we all have eyes. Will we see you? We you are not invisible. We see you lusting after Alicia all over the office. So just get over yourself, basically.
Well, and I loved how she did it because she was just like,
Yeah,
come on. Like,
we all have
yeah,
eyes.
like there's, we can see. But again, Will could have used his contact. I'm not saying that like he could have put everything together, but it just goes to show that Will doesn't necessarily know Diane as well as I think he thinks he does.
Mhm.
So an offer comes in at this point. It's second degree manslaughter for 10 years. And I could not believe that this mother looked at her daughter and said, 10 years, you'll be 34, you'll still have a life to live. I was
Oh,
like, whoa, that's heavy. That's heavy. I know the alternative here is that if a guilty
yeah.
verdict comes, it's going to be 45 years. Like, I understand that. But also, then, which was also wild, was let us put everything in Cary's hands.
Yeah. Cary, the same Cary who just a couple weeks ago was high on mushrooms
Mushrooms.
while doing a big murder case. Like the same Cary,
Mhm.
this guy,
And
the
Cary,
Justin Bieber with the
oh
Justin
my
Bieber hair.
God. And I don't know if he's trying to impress Will or Alicia or what, but he leans in, he's holding her hands.
Hmm.
She's like, he's like, I know you didn't do this. Like, really, really, really leaning into it. Yeah. So
But I mean, I think his advice is basically let it
let it ride.
play out
Yeah.
in court. Yeah,
Yeah. Let it play out in court. Then we go back to the jury. The jury is arguing, going back and forth. And this classic 12 angry, sorry to spoil 12 angry men for you, you should still watch it, it's really great, but this is like the whole argument here is like the whole point of the defense is to poke a hole in the prosecution's case. It's not to disprove it 100%, it's not anything, it's just to leave reasonable doubt. So at the end of all their conversations, I think the foreman, who was a doctor, says, I don't think I was given enough information just in general. Do you have reasonable doubt? No, I think I have reasonable ignorance, which I thought was like, it was good, but I was like, that's a writer writing, like in the
yeah.
situation.
No real person would say that.
Yeah, like that's a
You know.
writer. The verdict comes in at the same time. Bianca and her mom want to talk to the team, so this is not looking good because the last time we left Bianca and her mom, they were considering an offer, but we're gonna let Carrie's wisdom guide them in the situation. And we don't really see that conversation between Bianca, her mom, and the team, but we do see the judge go in to talk to the jury and basically like excuses the jury.
Yeah, because I mean, at that point, the jury's like, "All right, we got our verdict. Time to turn it in."
Yeah.
We see them. We see that they're all finally unanimous. We're not told in that moment what the verdict is. But then, like, as you said, Cuesta comes in. He's like, "Hey, thanks for coming, but we don't need you anymore." Like we find out that Bianca took the plea deal of 10 years in jail, which I was honestly surprised about because I mean, up to this point, most of our cases have pretty happy endings.
Hmm.
This one was not a happy ending, and
Well, and for multiple people involved, because not only did it not work out for the defendant, but we really get to feel at like the wasted, not wasted, but like the feelings of the jury. Like they took their time. They put a lot of stuff into this. They, and it can't, and it comes down to the wire and they just go home.
yeah, and then we do see at the very like last shot of the episode that she was going to be found not guilty. So it's even more gut wrenching
Yeah.
that she took this plea deal when she was going to be, to get off the hook here. She was going to be found not guilty. She wasn't going to serve any jail time, but now she's serving 10 years for something she definitely didn't do. So I mean, and again, that was kind of a surprising to me because most of our cases have had pretty happy endings. Our people usually win. I think if I think about all the cases we've had so far, like I've got some losses, but for the most part, we've won a lot.
Yeah.
And now this is a considerable loss here, where I was so happy that we did find out what the verdict was, because there are shows out there that we would never know.
Hmm.
They would never tell us. We would just have to guess or whatever about what the verdict was. I was so happy we got that shot of all the not guilty papers.
Do you feel though that like now this will be like, well, we were distracted by sex, so we we have to be very like they were all
No,
of
they're
them.
not gonna.
All of them were in their feelings this entire
But
time.
that, I don't think that really affected their handling of the
I don't think
case.
it
And
did, but I think like someone could say like I don't know if it
I
comes
mean,
down to money. If it comes down to money, I think that conversation
yeah,
would
we're not
happen.
gonna get that. We're not gonna get that in the
I
show. I don't
know.
think. But yeah,
I just more Kurt, please. Thank you.
yeah, we're gonna need some more Kurt for sure, because that relationship is just so electric. It's so fantastic. Like I said, the chemistry is off the charts whenever they're
When
night.
she
They don't even
put
have to be in the same room.
her hair behind her ear, she knew, man. She knew. So good.
Yeah, it was. Listen, and we talked about this earlier. Minimal Peter,
Great
no,
episodes.
minimal Peter, minimal kids. Great episode.
Love it. Love it. There was no Peter. There was
There was
no
no Peter.
Peter.
There was just one shot of Grace.
Yeah.
So very minimal kids.
Yeah. I even
That's the makings
love
of a good
like
episode.
even more is like a no Peter episode with Eli. Like if there was some Eli
Mm,
in there,
yeah,
be good.
we're doing perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that is our case. That is our episode for the week. Marissa, do you want to tell these lovely people where they can find you on the interwebs?
You can always find me on Instagram and Threads at It's Me Marissa G. If you click in my bio, there's a link that tells you everything else that I'm up to. I just started a newsletter. If you'd like to join that, I'm looking at like I'm doing my usual television, movies, drama, but it's fun. It's fun. Let's
Fun
make
times.
drama fun. What about you, Jason?
That is always our aim. Make trauma
Make
fun.
trauma fun.
You can find me on Twitter at JAYR1085. Married at First Sight is finally back. So we're talking about that over on the Perfect Match podcast with me and my co-host, Asia Welch, who, if you're a Survivor fan, you also know that Asia is on the current season of Survivor. So check that out. That's extremely exciting for us over on the podcast. So come check and hear us
Yes.
out on the Perfect Match podcast in the Love at First Sight feed on the Rob Has a Podcast network. A lot of names there, but you can find it, I'm sure. I have faith in you, lovely listeners. Until next episode, stay good.